Hey everyone, it's Doc Fire from hpairsoft.com, and I'm going over the initial um, beginning reviews on the new AR1, and just have been waiting for this stuff to come out. It's been out for a few months now. I've only seen one or two videos on it. I kind of want to do that Doc Fire down and dirty video on my kind of initial thoughts and what I like and what I don't like, and kind of give you some of the information on that. So, okay, so let's go over kind of what comes in the kit. When you get the kit, it comes with obviously the plastic case, which is nice having a case come with your stuff. Comes with a high cap magazine. It's a Valcom brand. Some of the marking tape if your state requires it. A couple manuals. This is the manual for the tank. This is the registration of your First Strike product today card and the quality guaranteed stamps from First Strike, and then the Falcon Tactical manual, which is about 8 pages long and about 6 actual useful pages of adjusting the velocity, adjusting the rate of fire, and adjusting the recock. Did come with a couple of Allen wrenches. I don't have those here. I think one fits the hop-up unit. But let's go over the gun initially. Things that are interesting about the gun, or just things that I noticed. The gun takes some real steel parts. For instance, the grip down here was real steel compatible. The foregrip, I think, is, you can put some real steel stuff on that. The mag release, I think, is real steel compatible. And then these components here are all actual steel. They're not pot metal, they're actual steel, which is nice. That's a really nice feature. The upper on it is a polymer upper, and it's a fiber reinforced polymer, very similar to what you find like on Glocks and some of the real steel guns out there. So it's actually, I was kind of initially disappointed that they went the plastic upper. But after getting it, I like the fact that all the edges are nice and softly rounded and they're not sharp. Like you get on some of these CNC machined uppers, they don't do a lot of business on, kind of cleaning up some of the sharp edges on it. So this is actually, it's nice, and the quality plastic, so that's nice. It has flip up sights. They're not automatic spring loaded, they're just manual. And they're of a cheaper grade plastic, and it's not cheap, it's just that it's not a fiber reinforced, it's more just a soft plastic. And they have the little fiber optic light sensor things in there, and it's more for looks. They're all right. They're not anything to write home to anyone about, but for instance, I feel like my Tippmann M4 airsoft, I like the sights better. The quality of the sights better than these. What else comes with the kit? You don't get a dejamming rod or unjamming rod or a cleaning rod, which, honestly, for a $700 gun, I don't know why they didn't throw into the box. It's kind of odd. I know we probably all have tons of them, but and why did they just throw in a full Allen kit? Because there are a lot of Allens on here. Just throw a whole kit in there. That's not that, for the price of what you're paying, that's not that bad of a cost. So with that, let's see, what other things? The tank on it is a 3,000 PSI, 13 cubic inch First Strike regulated tank, so it's 3,000 internal PSI. For this gun, the regulator is set at 450 PSI, so it drops it down to 425 PSI plus or minus a few pounds per square inch. And that's what this gun is designed to run as, around that 400 to 425 range. Okay, the typical First Strike T15 paintball guns run around 800 to 850 psi, And so you can't run 850 psi. I mean, you can, it's not going to hurt it, but your feet per second would be through the roof. So it has a nice tank on it. I see the barrel. If I recall, the inner barrel is about 370, 380 millimeters long. It's an aluminum barrel on the inside that's black anodized, and at the tip of the barrel down at this end, it has a rubber O-ring to help stabilize the barrel within the outer barrel, so it puts that vibration down, which is nice. It is a nice feature. The inner quality of the barrel is, I would call it middle of the road. It's nothing. It doesn't have a mirror finish on the inside, a nice even bore all the way down. You can see the waves in it a little bit. So quality's, it's an okay barrel. I would say probably on par with what Tippmann puts in theirs. That they do aluminum barrel too. That's unanodized. The hop-up rubber was black rubber, and it wasn't anything, just like a normal hop-up rubber, and so it wasn't anything special. It is an AEG barrel, so it takes standard barrels. The hop-up is a top-down hop-up, which is what we all like. So it's a correct, even force all the way down. And you've seen on some of the other videos that this hop-up, you have the ability to turn it off and on. And you don't see this on the other videos because they don't take it out, but we take it out to show you guys. This is pretty interesting. Get it out of there. Upside down. Here it is. So the hop-up consists of two parts. This outer part, this black outer part you see, and then if you look at the tip here, I gotta get my camera, the inner, come on, focus. There we go. The inner tip, and that little silver tip at the end, that's what pushes down on the hop-up nub, or the nub arm, and it's adjustable from the inside. So the whole idea behind that is this outer shell screws down on the body and it has a shelf. It could only go down so far. You screw it down there, and then you adjust the inner one and get your hop up to where you want. When you go to the chrono and you want to chrono with no hop up, you want to get a true reading, all you do is you back out this outer one, and it lifts the whole unit out, even this inner set screw. You chrono it, and then you can screw that back down, and this should, in theory, go back to where you originally set it. Nice feature. There were some things when I got it. This is a loose fit. You know, the threads are loose, and it could have used some sort of thread locking, especially on the inner one. So my concern is, as the gun fired and the hammer moved back and forth, the vibration of the gun would eventually vibrate this out of adjustment. The outer one set screw, since you screw it all the way down and you lock it, it stays fairly snug. So that was kind of a complaint. And actually, with most of the screws on this, especially there's two screws that mount this front rail system on the barrel nut, and they didn't have any Loctite or any, thread anti-vibration thread sealant or anything like that on it. So they were actually loose. So my concern is if I would have shot it or not, that probably would have those would have fallen out. And they're loose right now, so I could slide this off, but I'll slide it off right now. And so, that was, not the end of the world, but it's kind of a little quality control on your product before it goes out. At least the assembly should be at least locking that stuff down with something that's like a low strength Loctite. And so they do say quality guaranteed here on their card. And yeah, so another thing is, a lot of people think that this is made by Valken. It's a First Strike manufactured. It's basically based off the First Strike T15 paintball gun, and essentially the lower is, what I understand, the exact lower. Some of the internal parts are machined just a little different, like the air passage holes are a little bit smaller to accommodate for the not as much air needed. The upper is essentially the same upper from my understanding, except they didn't mill the hole here for the hopper. And there's a few other things, but it's essentially the same components. The aluminum, the material here is a very nice, I don't know if it's a cast aluminum. It feels like it's a CNC type of aluminum, but just a really high quality, about the same quality as my true ARs that I have. I mean, it doesn't seem like that Tippmann, and I hate to call it pot metal, but that Tippmann aluminum it's a, more airsoft. It's a little better than most airsoft guns, but it was just a little not as high quality as this. This aluminum is really nice and high quality. So, so it is made by First Strike, and apparently Valken is the distributor of it for First Strike. You can buy it directly from First Strike from their website. I bought this from a dealer on the East Coast, I think. Let's see some of the other things that are kind of stand out. It has a 14 millimeter counterclockwise threaded front, so that's standard. The outer barrel is a proprietary barrel, but it's it's not anything that is it's a standard length, and it fits all the AG barrels on the inside, and it seems to be actually the hop-up unit I really like. I think it's really well done. And you can actually do some custom things with it, make your own hop-up nubs that are pretty simple in size. And if you go to hpairsoft.com, and you'll see a photo review of this initial impressions, and you'll see that hop-up, all the components of that. Let's see other things. You take it apart. So you take it apart just like any other. Push pin's kind of stiff on this one, just like a standard AR or a real steel. And so you can take it apart and stand up here and get this to zoom in. Of course, it wants to focus on everything but okay. So there's the upper, and of course nothing wants to focus with me. And this block right here, I get everything to focus in. That front block, this guy right here, that is the valve. There you go. And you see a little ball on the top? If you have one of these and that ball does not roll, it's designed to roll, and I'll show why here in a second. It's got, come on, focus in there. It's working on it. It doesn't like it. There we go. And so then the hole in the front here is the transfer hole for, oops, that way. That guy right there, that's the hole for when the valve opens, it blows the air through that and then up into the bolt. And then that's the side adjuster screw on the side, and that brass screw in there. It's works the same principle as a Tippmann, that you just block the hole, that passageway. The further you screw it in, it lets less air through. Trigger group, if you have a red trigger group, that's the trigger group. That's the full auto. They do sell trigger groups that are semi-only, and you can buy that from them. But this is the full auto. I think they all come full auto if they're going to sell a semi-auto one. And then this, I get up here and focus this. That small hole right there. Come on, focus. It likes to focus on everything, but well, you guys can see that small little hole there. What that hole is, that's the recocking hole. And there's an adjustment screw. You take this block off. Show you real quick. You take the block off. Little pin right here, and you push that in, and this block comes out. I can get everything to. Well, I'm not going to take it out right now, but there's a little adjustment hole. You take this block and you can adjust that, and that will adjust how much, exactly the same way as the velocity adjuster. It controls the amount of air going through that hole, and so the more you open that up, the more force it is, it's going to apply to that hammer to push it back and to reset it. And the more it's closed, the less force it is. And that's part of your tuning of it. And there's some good videos out there that people do on the first Strike T15 on tuning those, and you can utilize those to kind of get you going. I'm not going to go into detail on that. Does have a proprietary O-ring right there. I do recommend buying a handful of these. You know, they're about $4 or $5 each. You have 2 or 3 on stock just in case it gets damaged or it falls out and you lose it, because it just sets in there. And just you don't want to have to go to a game and have to not be able to play because that thing fell out when you're adjusting something. Let's see. So the upper, so that O-ring seats against these 2 holes. So the rear hole is, actually there's 3 holes there. You can see the small holes. That small little hole, that's the hole that the recocking pressure blows up in there. The big hole is where the valve pin goes through, so the hammer can hit it. And then this largest hole up front is where the air pressure goes into the bolt and to push the BB down. To take this apart, it's pretty easy maintenance. It's got a click and turn. I don't know if it's going to focus here, but right there, click and turn, push in and turn. And so you have the spring catch, a rubber bumper for the hammer, and then the spring. And spring looks very similar to like what a Spider, the old Spider paintball guns had. And then give it a tap, and your bolt assembly comes out. It's a bolt assembly. The hammer, it's called the transfer tube, and then the nozzle. And so this is where the air goes in that hole, it blows through there and blows in out the nozzle, out the BB. The nozzle is spring loaded here to allow for jams and stuff like that. And I think for feeding issues. It's got an O-ring here. I think it's an 18. I don't remember. 018, and this I think is a 13. 013. I don't remember that. And so the hammer, this is the hammer assembly. The back part is what catches on the sear. This front chamfered or angled and it spins piece is what actually hits as this rides forward, it hits that valve, it pushes that valve down. And that's what that bearing rolls on. So when you're assembling this, and this is, I kind of cleaned it off so I don't get all dirty, put a little bit of grease on here. Metal to metal grease, wheel bearing grease is fine, as long as it's not going to hurt O-rings. Generally it doesn't, because it's got O-ring seals in most cars. Use a little bit of grease. That'll keep things nice and lubed and just keep that in good condition. So that's the bolt. Let's see, what other thing can I talk about here? It's pretty simple to install. It only goes in one way. Oops, lost my parts there. Parts there. That goes right here. And you just push everything back in and lock in place, and that's done. So it's, for maintenance wise, that's pretty quick. You have a couple O-rings you need to maybe attend to, and that's it off the side. So maintenance in here, outside of making sure it's you have a little lube, paintball type grease for O-rings, a little lube on here, a little oil, paper oil, just to lube up the O-ring, keep it supple. I haven't taken this all out yet. I'm sure you can put a little grease, and obviously a little grease on the back of your sear. It can't hurt. Take this off. And so, the interesting thing, one thing I didn't like is if I want to unscrew my tank and take it off the gun, I can't. It hits. that. And so the way to get it off is turn this like this and then spin it. Okay, well that's all fine and dandy, right? But now when I send it back, this screw's loose. So I've got to tighten that screw. Don't really like having to do that every time. So, kind of irritating. I'm not going to tighten right now because I want to gas it up. So I'm going to gas up, and yes, I can gas it up with the upper not on it. That valve is, I can't push it in because there's air pressure on there. If you gas up, it's a good way to test it. If you're having leaks, take the upper off, gas it up, and you can hear where the leak's coming from. If it's coming down here, it could be the O-ring that seals the valve chamber down below. If it's coming out of something up here, it could be this actual valve and its seat. And they're known to leak. They have a really hard seat on the valve, and they're known to actually leak. They have leaked. I think they've just fixed some of the design. Real quick. So that's kind of the internals. I'll put it back together in a second. One of the biggest complaints that I had was when I got this marker, it came damaged, and that was quite irritating. So here's, I start pulling the parts out that were damaged. Here's the valve pen. This part, so this part right here, you see that's bent right there, where my thumb's pointing. That's this part right here. Okay, and actually this rod's bent, still bent. They haven't replaced that yet, although multiple emails and phone calls, and they still haven't got it right. I am very thankful for them working with me, but one of the biggest things at First Strike, if you're watching, thanks for the plastic case. That's nice. But because it comes packaged in this case, and you see the gun, it's not, it doesn't fit from end to end, right? So what happened is, you see there's some tears here, is that this foam is not glued down, it just sits here in the case. And although it has notches out, it will slide down. So this is put into a wood or cardboard box, and the shipper just dropped it on its end, probably tossed it out of the back of the truck, and it fell on his end. It didn't damage anything. There's no obvious damage on the cardboard box, but it shifted this whole thing down, and since this is a little longer than the butt plate, it jammed this rod back, bent that down, which was super duper. And then when it did that, it pushed the bolt, it slammed the bolt up, and it tore up the rubber bucking, chipped the tip of the bolt, and I think it damaged the little nub, the hard nub in there. And so when it came, it was damaged. And so initially I just saw this. I kind of inspected it, and then it broke the back of this off. And so they sent me another one, and they finally sent me this. I finally got a new valve. I bought another valve for that. They still need to send me this. This is still bent. You can see it's bent like that because it bent it, so it's tight getting it on. And they don't get me wrong, First Strike has been pretty outstanding on getting stuff to me. Getting the communication with the tech person on what parts I need has been kind of confusing. So word of advice: first off, First Strike, put some cardboard chunks in here or some foam thing and lock the gun in here for shipping, so it doesn't slide around. All right, that's because this foam moves on the inside. It didn't help it. They had some bubble wrap around the gun, but that didn't help anything, which is kind of comical because you have foam here, and why bubble wrap the gun? Why don't you use that bubble wrap at either end? It would have probably prevented this, and undue shipping costs for them, and delay for me to even utilize the new item. Secondly, is come out with a manual. I know manuals are expensive. I don't care if you do it online or whatever. That has a parts diagram. So when I'm talking to someone, I said, this is the part that I think I need, or this is the part I need, and then they don't ship me parts after parts that are wrong. and or not the part that I need. So those are some complaints that I initially have. The biggest complaint I have is it came broken, and it's because of shipping. That's one of the things, but it damaged everything. And so I've yet to be able to use the gun at a field because I've been waiting for parts to come. And for a $700 gun, about the price of a real steel AR out there, and a fairly decent one, um, it didn't function. It shot horrible. The feet per second were through the roof, and that's a valve issue. And so we worked through that, and I'm not going to go into all the details on that. Uh, it and it, I mean, the accuracy was just, it was shooting all over the road world. The feet per second were up and down, and I couldn't until I figured out that the bucking was screwed up, and the rubber was ripped, and of course it'd be all over the place. And so with that, I finally replaced it with the G&G green bucking, and that's helped thing where now it's consistent on shots, and it's just got a hook, and I think that's because there's a little plastic nub, and if you look on hpairsoft.com, you'll see the breakdown of the parts that go in the hop up, and there's a little plastic nub that's got a concave face that rests on top of the bucking or the rubber part. I'm trying to scrap the name of it, but anyway, it actually was damaged, and I think it's dented up on one side, so it's putting more pressure on the other side. So I think that's what's causing the curve. At least I hope that's what it is. So I got to get that part. And so it's really hasn't been usable except for out of the backyard to see if it functions. It does shoot full auto. Oh, the other thing, that's when I first got it, gassed it up. The only problem I thought was this. I gassed it up, put some 2.0 BBs in here, and some quality 2.0 BBs, and then Golden Ball Pro Slicks, and gassed it up, was shooting over my chrono, and it was shooting super hot. Even with the screwed up bucking, it was shooting 450 and about two joules or something ridiculous. And I go, well, that just doesn't work. It won't work at my field. And so I adjusted the velocity screw all the way in, nothing. It was still above 400. And I go, well, that's just, I can't use it unless I'm using it as a DMR, which I don't. I'm not going to use it for that. So talking to First Strike, they gave me a new valve seat, and they said that should help a little bit. It has a little bit. I replaced the bucking, which I think was one of the other issues. And I got a new bolt for it because the bolt was damaged. And so now I can get it tuned down. As you see, that screw in there is almost all the way closed. I mean, it is barely open. So I don't have much more adjustment, and I'm right at 400 feet per second with 2 O's. You can adjust the feet per second by that screw and the recocking pressure. So you're dividing the amount of pressure that's going through that valve, and you're siphoning some of it off for recocking, but it's point of no return there that if your recocking pressure is so high, you're going to start damaging the back of that bolt bushing. They'll beat the hell out of those things, and they'll wear out, and pretty soon it'll break this back cap. You see it on the T15 paintball guns. It's quite common. And so it's a fine line, and I finally got it there. I'm shooting about 395 and about 1.5 joules with right at field runs, but I'm right there maxed down. So it's sensitive to temperature. So in a colder environment, I'll probably have to open it up. In a warmer, I was about 70 degrees. I had to shut it down a little bit, but I think I have it there. You can adjust, you to lower the regulator pressure. And I did mess with that, but then it starts affecting recocking, so you start running a fine line there. So it was a little irritating that it didn't function properly out of the box for a $700 gun, and all the hype and all the hoopla that's come along with the delivery of this thing and the original company and their issues or whatever. And I'm glad that First Strike's at least the manufacturer of it and stuff like that. And they do have tech support, and they try to get their products fixed. It's hard to get a hold of them sometimes. What other things? Let's see. So it didn't shoot. Finally got it to shoot. How do I compare it? Compare it against the Tippmann M4. The aluminum quality on this is better. Let's look at Tippmann M4 is way cheaper. It's $200 cheaper out of the box, and it comes with more stuff. Although this one out of the box, although Tippmann will run out of the box by buying some CO2 cartridges, this one runs out of the box just by gassing it up, getting air. And the CO2 cartridges on the Tippmann's kind of a pain in the butt. Not a lot of people use them. Some people really like them. I went to Constant Air, and so they're equitable there. They both essentially a user gets it. They can get BBs, and they have air source. They're ready to rock and roll. And it's essentially you don't have to buy anything for this. You just need to have air to gas it up. The Tippmann, yeah, for the price, I think I would have it. You would see more custom grip, maybe some better sights. The Tippmann sights are better, just for iron sights. Maybe an optic sight for the cost of it. For the cost of that, maybe 2 mags, maybe a high cap, and then 2 mid cap mags would be nice. Because it's kind of designed for a mid cap setup. You have smaller air source back here. That really makes sense for that. If this model just had the not the full auto, but just a semi-auto, I could, and this setup, then I could see it even for a cheaper price. But right now, if I were to have someone say, "Hey, which one should I buy?" Tippmann. Sorry guys, it's just your product isn't working right, and it has a lot of little issues. It's not. I think they're going to have a lot of folks sending these things back because of damage from shipping, number one, and then trying to get their feet per second. So they got to work on something. They got to adjust the valve, and I think they can do outside of any remanufacturing things or whatever. But it just isn't working as what the kind of the anticipation. And the reality is, when you buy these things, you spend $700. You kind of want to be able to take it home, throw some BBs in it, gas it up, and at least be able to shoot it, or throw a battery in it, throw some BBs in it, gas it up, and be able to go to the field and at least be able to play. This right here, you probably have a hard time having a field allowing you to chrono into it. So sorry, First Strike guys. I think you got a great product. It just needs some fine tuning, and if you're trying to rush for Christmas or whatever, have in the manual, obviously have that diagram charts. We know what the parts are, and lower the price. $700 is too expensive. It's ridiculous for what you get. You can go and get yourself a and they're going to say, well, you get a tank and you'd have to buy a tank for these other guns. And it's like, okay, you're right. But these tanks are are dirt cheap. And so if you went and had to buy a tank, like something like this, yeah, you're going to spend a couple $100. But these small tanks are, you can get them for $40, $50 for the small tanks. So yeah, I just don't see the $700 in it. And then although the plastic is good quality, it just price isn't there. Other things I don't like the laser graving on the side of the big safety warning. I know we have to put rubber helmets on everyone or whatever. I get it, but can't we just have a sticker? That's dumb. That is horrible. But anyway, so that means I'm going to have to, I don't know, re-anodize it. That's probably what I'll do, which is more cost, but that just looks bad, guys. You know, some of these folks that like milsim and like some realistic, that's not realistic. And I know this back part doesn't look too realistic, but I'm just saying, this is what I'm saying. So let me put this guy all back together here. I do like the fact that it's easy to disassemble. The aluminum feels of really high quality. Take it off right here. Clock again. Okay. All right, give me a few minutes. There's that rubber O-ring. You gotta really push it. There we go. That funny O-ring in there, that proprietary O-ring, it seals against that top tube, and so it takes a little bit of pressure to squeeze that in place. So they always say you want to make sure it's cocked before you gas it up. And so this is what the other thing I don't like. You have a charging handle, and after it's cocked, it cocks the hammer back. You lose that spring pressure. There's no return spring in here to simulate real, so you have to shove that back into place, and it locks up there. That's kind of cheesy. Apparently, the T15 paintball guns, they came with a return spring. Maybe this one did. Maybe it broke in shipping, but it doesn't work for me, so kind of irritating. Trying to think what else. I think to kind of sum it up, thanks for the container. No thanks for the crappy placement or shipping padding on the inside to protect it. So I've been dealing with for a month now for a gun that doesn't work and going back and forth. Really excited about it, but hasn't really been able to shoot. Oh, big thing. We talk about Loctite. Some of these things, this stuff was all loose. Fix this so I don't have to. This is either a shoulder bolt, so every time I want to unscrew the tank, this doesn't come partially unscrewed. That's eventually going to vibrate off, and the whole thing will slide off when you're shooting. So that's an issue. God, guys, I really like to be able to say this is just really badass, and I'm really excited about it. But I'm sad to say that I'm not too excited. I'm not a dealer. They don't send me stuff for free, obviously. I pay for all this stuff, and I do down and dirty reviews. If you don't like it, I don't care. So, you know, that's what it is. Now, some other things that are out there. This is the PWD, I think, or it's a stock for this. It's for the T15 paintball gun, and it's a gas through. So you would have a remote line that has a little nipple down here on the bottom, and this all mounts right back here, and then it allows you to lock this in. So I got this, and it's not cheap. It's $119, right? And it's actually high quality. It's really nice. It's got steel parts and nice machined aluminum, and it's stout. I mean, this feels like real steel stuff, and really stout. But when I got it, I just slipped it on to see what it looked like, and I go, how does this thing work? It just, does it ever lock into place? It's got this little release mechanism here. Push it up, and I go, but what does it catch on? It doesn't catch on anything. It's like it's missing a part or something. And I'm looking at this thing, and this is the first Strike product. The one online, the photo had notches cut on this rods, on this side of the rod. This is the right side rod. It had these notches, so this guy would this little catch would catch, right? So quality control, $119 part, unusable. And so I go, hey, this is a problem. Can you send me those parts? So of course, it's like, oh yeah, that's a problem. And trying to explain through email which part it is, they sent me this part. I need this rail that has the machine notches so this thing can catch on something. They sent me this. I don't need this. So I'm like, it's difficult. So when we explained them about the damage, they sent me just this. This is the damaged one, but they sent me just a new one of these. They didn't send me this bent part, so I had to resubmit to them. I said, I need this whole part. The whole back piece is all broken. Then they sent me just this piece. Now I had to email them back today. I need this piece also because this is bent. And so I'm just getting bits and pieces, and which is frustrating. And I really think it's just a communication issue. You can't get a hold of them on the phone, so you're trying to email, and I can't explain what part it is because hell, I don't know what the name is. They have a name for everything, but I can't tell you what it is. So kind of frustrating for a $700 gun. And so anyway, I'm not trying to deter anyone from this. Hopefully, the one that you get works out of the box and works great. I would love to see another video on it. I think there's only one other private person video, and I think he's a team player for First Strike. So, and he was given a gun, and he chose shooting around, and that's great. He just is around his backyard doing tactical moves, and that doesn't tell me anything about the gun. So First Strike, you got some work to do. I think you got a product that will be phenomenal, but you got to get on the ball on making sure this stuff works going out the door. And no offense, whoever these folks are, assembly, testing, and packaging, you probably want to talk to CY, SH, and DW, whoever those folks are. They're probably great folks, don't get me wrong, but you need to probably do a little more retraining so they're doing the right thing. That's all I have. Dogfire Down and Dirty video. Hopefully you guys like this. That's all I got.